serve the city with no required standard for the background of these individuals, should this change as it's written?
Yes, I do think we should change that process. And keeping in mind that, you know, we do live in a democratic society, and that the separation of powers is a very important thing. But I think that we should explore a process that mimics on a local level what the United States Senate does and the President does. The City Council, I believe, should have an advising consent role over major department heads that have a budget. I think one of the things that will do is that will force candidates to be able, force us to vet candidates publicly, so that we know they'll have to submit information to us, public hearings, etc., so that citizens can know and understand where they come from, what their backgrounds are, quite frankly, what their relationships would be to the persons appointing them. And at a minimum, the citizens will be fully informed if we can come up with a process that gives a role of advising consent to Detroit City Council.
It's very clear that the mayor of the city of Detroit has a lot of power, and the city council doesn't have very much power. We already talked about how the largest responsibility of the city council is oversight of the budget. But I truly believe, being the legislative arm for the city of Detroit, we should have the same type of powers that Congress has when it comes to their relationship with the President. When the President puts out an appointee, the Congress has to approve it. And I think the same system should exist here. I've known Dave Bing for a number of years, and I know several people who work on his staff, and I know some of the people he's appointed because they're friends of mine. Some of them I went to school with, and some of them aren't qualified to do some of the jobs that they've been appointed to do. If you have City Council as a board to actually look at these candidates and vet them and present questions to them on how they are qualified, I really believe you'll have more highly qualified people brought to the table. Sure, politics always rears its head when it comes to situations like this, and you're going to have a person who's a politician try to return a favor to some friend or family member or whatever, and that's going to happen in any situation. But if you have some people overseeing the process, I think will decrease the amount of nepotism that happens right now. I think you'll find more qualified people appointed to positions. I think you'll see the city run a lot better and a lot smoother, and people not totally dedicated to saying yes to everything that the mayor brings to the table.
Okay. The next question starts with you. How do you feel about combining city and county government as a basis for cost saving, especially with essential services?
I'm not in favor of combining city and county government, but I am in favor of partnering with our neighbors regionally. We have to partner with Macomb and Oakland County as well as the Wayne County in order to see some economy of scales when it comes to simple things like purchasing salt. If we purchase in large bulk, we can decrease the amount we pay for salt. I mean, that's something very simple, but we would save thousands of dollars that way. I believe that because we're hurting financially here in the city of Detroit, and no longer does the city of Detroit carry the large stick that it had before, where most of the money was coming through the city. We've lost population from the city to these suburbs, so a lot of people who live in these suburbs actually came from the city of Detroit. So regionally, we're going to have to cooperate, and that does not mean we cooperate where Detroit gives away its assets or gives away control of its assets. That means you bring intelligent people to the table to negotiate how we can work better together to bring the entire region up. Because we're all in this together right now. And it's all about uplifting everybody, not just a certain group of people. And by doing that, to bring Detroit up, we're going to have to bring the entire region up. And I really believe there's going to have to be some regional cooperation. We've seen that in the past happen successfully. I really believe if the proper deals are brought to the table, if the proper people are at the table, we can come up with equitable solutions to all these different problems that present itself whenever we have to do the Detroit versus suburb thing. It shouldn't be like that anymore. It's a we thing, not a us and them thing anymore. And that's what I truly believe, and I think that's what's going to take us to the future, not the divisiveness between East and West, between white and black, between county and state, between city and from one suburban city to the city of Detroit. I think it's all going to be a together, we'll do this together type of proposition.
Thank you.
Likewise, I don't favor the merging of Wayne County and the city of Detroit. However, I do believe that there are some redundancies in services that are provided that we can look at in combining. Case in point for me is the Wayne County has a health department, the city of Detroit has a health department. Serving the same population, delivering some of the same services, I believe that we can do that more efficiently if we combine into one health department. And I think there's some other things that if we look at and examine what we do in terms of redundancy, that those things can be combined, but I would not favor combining the two governments as a whole.
I don't have a problem with regional cooperation. However, I would have a problem with regional takeover. I think we need to be very concerned about that as we proceed. Certainly there's some things we can do differently. Regional mass transit system is an area we're headed. We currently subsidize our bus system to the tune of $80 million a year. I think we can't afford that any longer. That's something we need to look at. However, we also have to make sure we protect the jobs of those workers if we're going to go that route. The health department is another area where we can look at in terms of regional cooperation. But I think we need to walk softly with this and not rush headlong into it. As an officer, I would have a problem with law enforcement, public safety being regionalized, because I think, I'd have a concern that the citizens of Detroit would get the short end of that stick. So I think there's some areas we can move in terms of regional cooperation, but I want to move slowly down that path to make sure that we're protected, our interests are protected, and the citizens of the city of Detroit are protected in that process.
Shelley Ifoy. I'm not in favor of merging our city services. However, prime example of that when Mont Clemens abolished their police department, and when Macomb County Sheriff had to cut the budget, they cut the officers from the city of Mont Clemens. Now, we can combine such services such as Outer Drive, the boulevard. During the winter months, they have snow removal. Sometimes we get snow removal, sometimes we don't. Things like that where they have a snow removal, maybe we could combine the services, something like that. But I'm in favor of regional cooperation. That's something we have to have because it's not us against them, suburbs and not the suburbs against us. We all visit and use each other localities all the time. But as far as just combining and merging all our assets, I'm not in favor of. Thank you.
I think what's so good about this crop of city council candidates up to this point is that we agree on a lot of things. I also am against the merging of our city and county services, because I believe that, that's been said before, I don't believe it serves the best interest for the city of Detroit. But I also realize that it's important for us to do what we can to strengthen the city of Detroit's services by themselves alone. We're in this thing collectively together. We've talked about that. Whether you talk about authorities or if you talk about partnerships or if you talk about mutual initiatives with other departments, other municipalities, we have to work together. That is the only way that we're going to turn our region around. And as Detroit goes, the rest of the region goes as well. So I am not for merging the two systems, county and city, but I am all for regional cooperation.
Thank you, Mr. Tate.
I'm Joanne Watson. As a city council member, I have worked with the regional authorities, and as a chair of a foreclosure prevention tri-county commission, where Wayne Oakland, Macomb County, and the city of Detroit came together to work on foreclosure prevention. As a matter of fact, I sponsored a resolution calling for a moratorium on foreclosures in the city of Detroit, giving homeowners a 3-year waiver, as was put in place in 1929 during the Great Depression. There's a depression financially, fiscally in the city of Detroit, and we ought to recognize that by having a moratorium in place. We worked together for months and months.